My daughter held the papers in front of my face and said I had 24 hours to sign over my house, or I'd never see my grandchildren again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I didn't sign. I smiled at her instead. Then I called my lawyer. The next morning, my daughter discovered that threatening your mother has consequences she never imagined. But let me back up, because this didn't happen overnight. This was 43 years in the making. I raised Jennifer by myself after her father died, when she was 3. Meningitis took him in 6 days. One week, we were a family planning a vacation to Disneyland. The next week, I was a 29-year-old widow with a toddler and a mortgage. I worked 2 jobs for 15 years. I was a dental hygienist during the day and did medical transcription at night after Jennifer went to bed. I typed until 2 in the morning most nights, my fingers cramping, my eyes burning, so she could have piano lessons and summer camp and a college fund. I never remarried. I dated twice. Both men were nice enough, but Jennifer didn't like them, and she was my priority, always. I told myself there would be time for me later. Later never came, but I didn't mind. I had my daughter. I had my work. I had this house that I bought with my late husband when we were 24 years old, and I'd paid off every single penny of that mortgage by myself. Jennifer got into a good state university. I paid for all 4 years. The college fund I'd built covered tuition and room and board. She graduated with a degree in marketing and no student debt. I was so proud. I threw her a graduation party in this house. Spent $2,000 I didn't really have on catering and decorations, because I wanted her to feel celebrated. She met Derek 6 months later. He worked in commercial real estate and drove a BMW he couldn't quite afford. I saw the lease agreement once when they were staying with me. The monthly payment made my stomach hurt, but Jennifer loved him, and I wanted her to be happy. I kept my mouth shut about the BMW and the expensive dinners and the vacation to Cancun they charged on credit cards. They got married 3 years later. I paid for the wedding, $38,000. Jennifer wanted a destination wedding in Napa Valley. I took out a small loan against this house to make it happen. It was the first time I'd ever borrowed against my home since paying off the original mortgage. The wedding was beautiful. 200 guests, a vineyard ceremony, an 8-piece band. Derek's parents contributed $5,000 and acted like they'd funded the entire event. Jennifer got pregnant a year later, twins, Emma and Olivia. I was over the moon. I'd always wanted more children, but never had the chance. These babies felt like a second opportunity at motherhood. I bought 2 cribs, 2 changing tables, clothes and toys and books. I set up a nursery in my guest room so Jennifer could stay with me when Derek traveled for work. And Derek traveled constantly. He was always closing some big deal in Phoenix or Austin or Seattle. Jennifer was alone with infant twins more often than not. I helped whenever I could. I did night feedings. I changed diapers. I rocked crying babies at 3 in the morning while Jennifer slept. I loved those girls with everything in me. When the twins were 2, Derek's real estate company went under. He'd invested most of their savings in a commercial property deal that fell through. They lost $90,000. Jennifer called me crying. They were going to lose their house. Could I help them? I refinanced this house and gave them $80,000. I was 62 years old, and I took on a new 30-year mortgage so my daughter wouldn't lose her home. My monthly payment went from $0 to $1,100. I had to keep working. I'd planned to retire at 65, but retirement was off the table now. Derek promised to pay me back. He looked me right in the eye at my kitchen table and said he'd pay back every penny with interest. I told him I didn't need interest, just the principal when he could manage it. He shook my hand. Jennifer hugged me and said I'd saved their family. That was 6 years ago. I haven't seen $1 of that money, but I kept helping. I watched the girls every Friday so Jennifer and Derek could have date night. I took them for whole weekends once a month so the couple could reconnect. I paid for the girls' preschool when money was tight. I bought their school clothes. I covered their dental work and eye exams and soccer league fees. Last year, Derek's new business started doing well. He'd partnered with someone, and they were flipping houses. Jennifer posted pictures on social media of their new Audi and their vacation to Hawaii, and the kitchen renovation with marble countertops. I was happy for them. I assumed the repayment was coming soon. It didn't come. 3 months ago, Jennifer came over on a Tuesday afternoon. She didn't usually visit during the week. The girls were in school. She sat at my kitchen table, where Derek had once promised to repay me, and she said they needed to talk about my living situation. My living situation. That's exactly how she said it. I poured us coffee and sat down. I thought maybe she wanted me to move closer to them. They'd bought a bigger house in a better school district, and maybe there was something nearby for me. I was open to it. I was 68 years old, and this house was getting harder to maintain. Jennifer put her phone face down on the table. She took a sip of coffee. She said I was getting older, and living alone wasn't safe. What if I fell? What if I had a medical emergency? I should really think about moving to a senior community. There was a nice one about 40 minutes away. She'd already picked up brochures. I said I appreciated her concern, but I was healthy and active and had no plans to move. I loved this house. Her father and I had painted every room together. I'd raised her here. I'd refinanced it to save her family. This was my home. She nodded slowly. She said she understood, but there was another option. She and Derek had been talking. They were building equity and looking to invest. What if I signed the house over to them? I could live here rent-free for the rest of my life. They'd handle all the maintenance and expenses. I wouldn't have to worry about property taxes or repairs. When I eventually passed, the house would already be in their name, which would save everyone the hassle of probate. I set my coffee cup down carefully. I asked if she was asking me to give her my house. She laughed. Not give, she said. Transfer. For estate planning purposes. It was smarter this way. Otherwise, when I died, the house would get tied up in probate, and taxes would eat up a huge chunk of its value. This way the girls would have generational wealth. Wasn't that what I wanted? To leave something for my grandchildren? I said I'd think about it. She said there wasn't much time. They needed to make this kind of decision soon for tax purposes. Could I think about it and get back to her by the end of the week? I said yes. She left. I sat at my kitchen table for an hour. Something felt wrong. I couldn't name it exactly, but something in how she presented this felt calculated, rehearsed. I called my friend Margaret. We'd worked together at the dental office for 22 years. She was sharp as a knife and didn't tolerate nonsense. I explained the situation. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then she said I should talk to a lawyer before I did anything. I said it was just estate planning. Margaret said estate planning done by the people who inherit is called theft. That word landed hard. I made an appointment with an attorney named Richard Moss. He was in his 50s, came recommended by Margaret's daughter, who was a paralegal. I brought all my documents, the original deed to the house, the refinancing paperwork from 6 years ago, the loan I'd given Jennifer and Derek, which I'd had them sign a promissory note for, even though I never intended to enforce it. Richard read everything. He asked if Jennifer and Derek had ever made payments on the $80,000. I said no. He asked if they'd offered. I said Derek mentioned it once or twice, but nothing concrete. Richard asked if I'd agreed to sign the house over. I said I'd told her I'd think about it. He leaned back in his chair. He said what Jennifer was proposing was technically legal if I consented, but it was a terrible idea. Once the house was in her name, I had zero protection. She could evict me. She could sell it out from under me. The promise that I could live there rent-free for life meant nothing without a formal life estate agreement, and even those were risky if the relationship soured. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I asked what he recommended. He said I should decline, politely but firmly, and I should consider asking for repayment of the loan, or at minimum setting up a formal repayment plan. 6 years without a single payment was long enough. I thanked him. I paid his consultation fee. I drove home and sat in my driveway for 20 minutes. That evening I called Jennifer. I said I'd thought about her proposal and I wasn't comfortable signing over the house. I appreciated her concern for my future, but I wanted to remain independent as long as possible. There was silence on the other end. Then she said I was making a mistake. She said I wasn't thinking clearly. Old people often couldn't see what was in their best interest. Old people. She called me old people. I kept my voice steady. I said my decision was final. She said fine. She'd respect my choice, but she needed to be honest with me. Things were tight for them financially. Derek's business had some unexpected expenses. They'd been counting on this arrangement. If I wasn't willing to help family, she needed to know where she stood. I reminded her I'd given them $80,000 6 years ago and never asked for it back. I'd paid for preschool and clothes and vacations with the girls. I'd helped plenty. She said that was different. That was grandparent stuff. This was about securing the family's future. I said goodnight. I hung up. 2 days later, she showed up at my door unannounced. Derek was with her. It was a Saturday morning. I was still in my robe, having coffee and reading the newspaper like I did every weekend. Derek did most of the talking this time. He sat on my couch like he owned it and explained that they'd consulted with a financial advisor. The advisor strongly recommended I transfer the house for tax purposes. Did I realize how much the estate tax would be? The girls could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said my estate wouldn't be large enough to trigger federal estate taxes. I'd looked into it. He said state taxes were different. I clearly didn't understand how this worked. He had an MBA. He knew what he was talking about. I said I'd consulted an attorney, and my decision stood. Jennifer's face changed. Something hard came into her eyes. She said I'd talked to a lawyer about this, about a private family matter. I said I'd sought legal advice before making a major financial decision. That seemed reasonable. She stood up. She said, if that's how I wanted to play it, fine. But I should know that access to Emma and Olivia wasn't guaranteed. Grandparents didn't have rights. She and Derek decided who spent time with their children. If I wasn't going to be a team player, maybe supervised visits were more appropriate. My hands started shaking. I set down my coffee mug. I asked if she was threatening to keep me from my grandchildren. She said she was protecting her family from someone who clearly didn't have their best interests at heart, someone who'd rather pay lawyers than help her own daughter. Derek put his hand on her arm. He said they should go. They'd given me time to reconsider. The offer was on the table for 72 hours. After that, things would change. They left. I stood in my living room shaking. Then I called Richard Moss. It was Saturday, but he'd given me his cell number. He answered on the third ring. I told him what happened. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said we needed to meet Monday morning. He wanted to take action before they did. Monday morning, I sat in Richard's office. He'd brought in another attorney, a woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in family law. Richard said we were going to do two things. First, we were filing a formal demand for repayment of the $80,000 loan with interest. Second, Patricia was going to prepare a grandparents' rights filing, just in case Jennifer followed through on her threat. I asked if this would make things worse. Richard said things were already worse. People who threaten you with your grandchildren don't suddenly become reasonable. We needed to establish legal protections now. I signed the paperwork. Richard sent the demand letter that afternoon via certified mail and email. Jennifer called me 40 minutes later, screaming, "How dare I? How dare I treat them like criminals? That loan was a gift. I'd never asked for repayment. I'd never mentioned interest." I said the promissory note they'd signed said otherwise. She said I'd changed. I wasn't the mother she knew. I'd turned mean and vindictive. I said I'd been kind and generous for 6 years and received threats in return. I was protecting myself. She said I'd regret this. She said things I won't repeat, things a daughter shouldn't say to her mother. Then she hung up. 3 days passed. Silence. On Thursday afternoon, Jennifer showed up again. She had papers in her hand. She walked into my house without being invited. Derek stayed in the car. She put the papers on my kitchen table. She said this was a quit-claim deed. All I had to do was sign it, and everything would go back to normal. I could see the girls this weekend. We'd forget this whole ugly fight. Family was more important than money. I didn't touch the papers. I asked if she'd consulted with an attorney before bringing me this. She said they didn't need an attorney for a simple property transfer. I said I wouldn't be signing anything. Her jaw tightened. She picked up the papers. She said, "Fine. I had 24 hours to change my mind. If I didn't sign, I would never see Emma or Olivia again. She'd make sure of it. She'd tell them I was sick, that I didn't want to see them anymore. She'd move to another state if she had to." Then she said something I'll never forget. She said I was a bitter old woman living in a house too big for me, clinging to things that should belong to the next generation. I'd die alone here and no one would find me for days. I looked at her. This woman I'd rocked as a baby. This woman I'd sacrificed everything for. I didn't see my daughter anymore. I saw a stranger. I smiled. I said thank you for making this so clear. Then I called Richard Moss right there in front of her. I told him Jennifer had just threatened me again and attempted to coerce me into signing a quit-claim deed. I needed him to file whatever paperwork was necessary to protect my interests. Jennifer's face went white. She said I was crazy. I was ruining everything. I kept Richard on the phone while she left. The next morning, Richard filed a restraining order petition based on elder financial abuse and harassment. Patricia filed for grandparents' visitation rights. We also filed a lawsuit to recover the $80,000 plus interest. The sheriff served Jennifer and Derek that afternoon at their home. My phone exploded. Text messages from Jennifer calling me every name you can imagine. Messages from Derek saying I was destroying their lives. A voicemail from Derek's mother saying I should be ashamed of myself. I didn't respond to any of it. Richard had told me not to. 2 weeks later, we had a preliminary hearing. Jennifer and Derek showed up with an attorney who looked fresh out of law school. Our side presented the promissory note, the demand letter, the threatening text messages Jennifer had sent, and a declaration from me detailing the coercion attempts. The judge was a woman in her 60s. She read everything carefully. Then she looked at Jennifer and Derek and said financial elder abuse was a serious matter. The temporary restraining order would stand pending a full hearing. Jennifer and Derek were prohibited from contacting me except through attorneys. Jennifer started crying. She said she just wanted her mother to be safe. She'd been trying to help. The judge said threatening to withhold grandchildren wasn't help. It was extortion. That word hung in the courtroom. Extortion. The next month was quiet. No contact from Jennifer. The girls' school photos showed up in my mailbox, which meant someone had kept my name on the distribution list. But there was no note. Then Derek's attorney called Richard. They wanted to settle. They'd pay back the $80,000 over 10 years with 3% interest. In exchange, I dropped the restraining order in the grandparents' rights case. Richard asked what I wanted to do. I said I wanted my money back and I wanted to see my grandchildren, but I didn't trust Jennifer's promises anymore. We countered. Full repayment of $80,000 plus 6 years of interest at 5%, which came to approximately $104,000. They could pay it over 5 years. The restraining order would be dropped when the first payment cleared. Grandparents' rights would be established through a formal custody agreement giving me 2 weekends per month and alternating holidays. They accepted. The first payment of $21,000 hit my account 6 days later. It came from Derek's business account. Richard verified it cleared. The custody agreement was finalized 2 weeks after that. Jennifer didn't speak to me at the hearing. She sat on the opposite side of the courtroom with Derek and her lawyer. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she just shook her head. I saw Emma and Olivia for the first time in almost 2 months on a Saturday morning. Derek dropped them off. He wouldn't look at me. The girls ran into my house like nothing had happened. They were 8 years old. They didn't know about lawyers and restraining orders and quitclaim deeds. They just knew they'd missed Grandma. We made cookies. We watched a movie. We played cards. When Derek picked them up, Olivia asked when they could come back. I told her 2 weeks. That was 4 months ago. I've seen the girls 6 times now. The visits are supervised in the sense that I have to document them and provide a schedule to Jennifer's attorney, but the girls and I are alone together. We don't talk about their mother. We don't talk about the house or money. We just have our time together. Jennifer and I haven't spoken. All communication goes through the lawyers. I've received 2 more payments on schedule. 3 years and 8 months to go. I still live in my house. I'm getting the roof replaced next month, paying for it with the settlement money. I refinanced again, and my mortgage is almost paid off. I'll be clear in 18 months, right around my 70th birthday. Margaret asked me last week if I missed having Jennifer in my life. I thought about it. I told her I missed the daughter I thought I had, but that daughter might have never existed. The woman who threatened to take my grandchildren unless I gave her my house. I don't miss her at all. I've thought a lot about how this happened, how the baby I nursed and the child I raised became someone capable of extortion. I think maybe I loved her too much. I think maybe I gave her everything she wanted and never taught her she couldn't have everything she demanded. I thought I was being a good mother by sacrificing. Maybe I was teaching her that other people's sacrifices were her entitlement. I won't make that mistake with Emma and Olivia. I love them completely, but I'm teaching them about boundaries and consequences and the difference between generosity and exploitation. I'm teaching them that love doesn't mean giving up your dignity. I'm teaching them what I never taught their mother. Some days I wonder if Jennifer and I will ever reconcile, if she'll ever apologize, if she'll ever see what she did wrong. I don't know. Maybe someday. But I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not signing over my house while I wait. I learned something through all of this. I learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish. Standing up to family isn't betrayal. And sometimes the people who should love you most are the ones you most need legal protection from. This house is mine. I earned it. I kept it. No one will take it from me through threats or manipulation. And when I die, it will go to Emma and Olivia in trust, managed by an independent executor until they turn 25. Not to Jennifer. Not to Derek. That's in my will now, properly drafted by Richard Moss. I sleep well at night. What would you do in my situation? Thank you for listening to my story.